That's it. That's good. Right?
Let's go.
Like to call the meeting to order? You can still. We're not off to a good start tonight. If you can please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Rachel, can we have all of you?
Dorfler. Sprick. Giacomo. Ferraro. Kerber. Norris. And Zavala. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As the first order of business tonight, as most of you know, 50 years ago, on November 15th, that will mark the anniversary of the shooting of police officers William Davis and Richard Posey were slain in the line of duty. And the mayor will keep at the moment of silence to memorial the lines of Parliament on the way. But for this moment, I just want to take a moment of silence and remember these two dedicated officers who gave their lives. Mr. Mayor, you want to, in the event anybody leaves over tonight, the mayor wants to speak about one. So next Tuesday, November 15th, is the actual 50-year anniversary since Officers Davis and those who were killed in the line of duty. We will be holding a memorial service in the 100 block of Linden Street, which is the location of the new parking garage addition, which is where the former police department was located, Borough, where the officers were killed. We will be dedicating a new memorial plaque that will reside on the garage building itself. We will also have time. We have the Pennsylvania State Police Honor Guard coming in to pay tribute. We have a few speakers. Both officers' family members will be in attendance, and this is one of the first times that they wanted to be in attendance. For that, they in the past have asked not to have public recognition, but on the 50-year anniversary, their family is traveling from across the country from Borough to be here for that. It is open to the public. We encourage folks to come. We expect that service it will not be very long. It'll be a 15-20 minutes between the honor guard, the unveiling of the plaque, a few presentations, and then the retiring of the colors there. However, at 7 p.m., for anybody that would like to attend at the American Legion, Bruce Malley, who's a former editor for the Daily Local, who's also a local author, just completed a book on the murders. And he will be there at 7 p.m. to share the story and the history around that event. The family was very supportive of that idea. They felt years ago it would have been too raw, but it's been 50 years and they want to make sure that the story is told and that people don't forget the sacrifices that their family made. So that will take place in the American Legion at 7 p.m. And Bruce will probably speak for 30 to 45 minutes on all the investigation, the story, and the arrest of Ansel Hamm, who is still incarcerated today. So everyone is welcome to attend, and we encourage you to help us spread the word. Before we get into business, I do want to make another announcement. The council will have an executive session on November 1st at 600 South Broad Street and via Zoom to discuss potential real estate transactions. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda? Motion.
Second.
Second, any council debate? All in favor of the agenda, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Agenda carries. We'll now move on to public comment, and for public comments, this is for suggestions, petitions by residents, property owners, and as well as designated representatives of organizations in the borough. Now, we know that many are here tonight for one specific item that's related to the budget, more specifically, the library funding. So what I would like to do is this final public comment open to anything else? Then what we're going to do is move that item for the budget discussion and the library funding as well up in the agenda so that council will have a chance to provide comment, and then we'll take public comment specifically to that item during that discussion time. So it'll be a couple more minutes down the agenda. So at this time, any non-budget / library funding public comments?
I knew Mr. President participated very well. In fact, I grew up on the 10 years ago. A long time ago. It was coming home from the do you people ever read that? Pennsylvania Borough. Because you have a councilman on your sitting on your board that's put on your image. That makes any difference, but how come we have to follow rules on everything? You guys never have to follow. The rule states that there's a vacancy on the borough council. The vacancy board consists of the remaining members of council, not the mayor, plus one civilian, one resident. And that resident will run the meeting. Just like when you install a new president, the mayor runs the meeting. They install it all. And he sets everything up, or she sets everything up. They advertise, and you don't get to go back in and do it executive. She comes out, you interview the candidates that want to do it. You did none of that. Now, you might, if you had done it that way, you'd probably get the same answer. That's the way the law states. And if you're going to do something, do it all, then you got to do it all. It's right in the borough code. In fact, if you look at your borough news this month, you'll find it right in there. Secondly, I was reading where, well, we all know what happened. There's secretary. Recently, the secretary or manager from UGAR left. What is the first thing they're going to do? And they're not saying that if this person did anything wrong, they're going to do it wrong. So I humbly request as a citizen of this borough that you do a forensic audit for 2018 to 2021, not this year, but 2018 to 2021. And let the chips fall where they may. I am tired of talking to people about things that went on and seeing raised eyebrows. You guys know things that happen. It's our money, it's not your money, it's part of your money, part of our money. And, you know, we want it on. And let the chips fall where they're at. You know things that went on with people in this borough office that you're not telling. And it could have cost us a lot of money. So I am humbly requesting an audit, forensic audit for 2018 to 2020.
Can I make one
Mr.
clarification?
Coney, I was going to ask you to do so.
So, yes, it's an incorrect statement of the law. It's under section 901 of the Borough Code. The vacancy board doesn't kick in unless this council can't agree on approving someone to fill that seat. Yes, yes, it is. I've got it.
Thank you.
Carol Kropchak, 521 West State Street. Good evening. I just set up our polling place at 305, I think precinct 305 at the uptown north. And wanted to say that we have a machine called the Express Vote, which allows for people who need help with voting to be able to vote without assistance. They can use either visual aids or they can listen in. When this machine was first brought to our attention, we were told that it also provides additional languages so that people can vote in their native languages without having to have interpreters assist them in the voting place. So in our discussions with voter services here in Chester County, we asked permission to use that, and they have said no. They said that the only place that is eligible for this is the city of Philadelphia. And so I'm here tonight to ask you as Borough Council to see if you, our governing body, can petition the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania so that people throughout our community can vote independently. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Buckler.
Cheryl Watson, 523 Magnolia Street. I'm speaking for Laura Jackson, who wants me to speak about trash. She walks around every day, so she says trash is overflowing in the town. She walks all over this town, that's all I can tell you. Now, what I noticed though about trash, when the traffic was diverted this week up by Elm to Maple out of town, so it was blocked off for some reason, is that the house that's right across from the ice cream place that has the mammoth rental property that was allowed to be built in back of the residence and almost as big as the residence, has about 8 cans there, 6 to 8. I wouldn't know who's picking up their trash because they had the same color cans as we do. Excuse me, I don't know what cans they call these things. They have the same vessel we do. And anybody that has more than 4 units is not supposed to have our trash, supposed to have their own product. So I want to see somebody into that. What I'm thinking about is that the lines have been drawn in the sand. I've been thinking that ever since I left here last meeting, and so has other people have been wrong. You showed us where you stood. You definitely showed your colors. We've seen it in every way. We just seen the discriminatory process for speaking in public here, and I hear even it being echoed today, and I wonder why. When you made a vote, did anybody speak? Then the last meeting, you made a vote that people who work 20 hours in this town can speak. Anybody who's not a taxpayer, resident, or a business entity has no business speaking in Kenneth Borough meetings. We can't go to their municipality and speak. We cannot go to their municipality, do any voting. We can't make any decisions to direct them here at all. And for most of you who are new, I want to echo this that I've said in the past. Bottom line is that quit trying to align us with Kenneth Township. We see where your direction's going. We see it with the little plans you have for this place. We're already in debt. We were in debt before you bought this place. No matter how many times you put an article in the paper, Mr. Dorfer, Mr. Pettit, this one just ran last Sunday. And it was speaking about the nice restaurants and the development of little tiny houses to see people on this property. We can't afford this property. You people out there that think we can better get a grip. We can't afford the garages. We can't afford to have empty buildings in this town. We can't afford your 12% tax hike over time. It's not fair to citizens. Some of these people have homeowners, and that is the homeowners is almost as high as your mortgage or your rent. You need to get a grip. You're sitting up here as the leaders, voting from your pocketbook, obviously, not having a clue that the citizens you serve, most of them, can't afford to have your spending go in this direction. I'm tired of hearing who's naive, who's shy, who don't know. Mr. Karate, you know there's a saying in the law, ignorance is what? Blank to the law? You got to know the law when you work here. I forget what it is, but I'll have it next time since you don't know. Ignorance is something, it's no excuse in the law, in other words. So your ordinances have to be followed. They have to be set in good faith. They have to be operable in good faith. And they're not that way. You deprive good citizens of speaking here or try to. You frustrate them, that's certainly me. And that crowd that came here before this month, you had plenty of opposition, and then you run an article like you didn't have none. I want to ask you one thing. On individuality, humanitarianism, and Christianity. I don't know where you stand. I know where some of the people that's come up and speak here who live on Cook Road are not Kennett residents. See, I know the borough. I know the lines. I know what you're doing. You're voting for you. Don't wait till I sit down and try to talk and give a rebuttal that doesn't make sense because you know I can pull it. Speak to me now. But this gotta stop. It's gotta stop. We can't afford to keep giving money away, and then when charitable institutions come up here, you say, no, we can't give it to them. I remember the food bank asking for $1,200, you said it? When people got indignant in the audience, then you did it. I remember the last 170 something you had, and you only gave them 4. And everybody else who we're talking about again tonight got 4. Where do you people come from with your sort of decision making? Where do you come from? Because legally, there's also an ethical thing. And anything I say up here when somebody says, why did she say that? Because in that book or any other book that I read, I write down what they say. I keep it and I catalog it. So I see when you say $4 million for the police station, because I've written it down. And if you get more money, fine. But that won't help us here. And if there's any respect for those gentlemen that died, because certainly there's probably only 2 or 3 people here who know anything about it, and we're here. Your new police station should have been named there.
Donna Elliott, 511 West Bay. I go to the library once a week, and sometimes I park in the front, and sometimes I park in the back. And I have noticed over the past couple of months that there's a large section of that parking lot that is reserved. Now, you guys have all moved down here. Who's parking in those parking spaces? Nobody. The rest of the parking spaces are filled. But those spaces are empty. And my question is, why weren't meters put up on those spaces over a month ago for more income into the borough? That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Owen. Any other public comment? Kenneth, 412 Meredith Street. First of all, I'd like to commend the Public Works Department for the 2 alleys that they did on this side of town. Nice alley and the balance of Schoolhouse Alley. I know what they looked like beforehand. I saw what they did to get it so that it would be last for a while, because they went down at least that far below the grade, below the top of what was there. So they went pretty deep. And it looks very nice. It was done in a timely manner. I'm starting to get worried, but I blame that a little bit on the rain that occurred between the time the contract was let and the time that it did. The only other thing that I have to speak about is why were some streets shut off during this last weekend run that, in my opinion, and in the opinion of a few other people that I spoke to, never should have. Like the 400 block of Meredith Street. I understand blocking it off at the intersection of Borough. What they erected barricade on the south end of the street. There's no reason for it. There was also a barricade put up on Chestnut Alley, which is the alley that runs behind my house. There's no reason to. The other is Birch. I understand shutting it off at Broad, but why all the way over at Walmart? My wife wanted to go to Hank's place for breakfast. I spent 5 minutes talking to the gentleman from the Public Works Department. And in his defense, he was very nice.
He was doing his job. He said, Jesse, wait, you park over there and walk. I said, look, my wife cannot walk more than 50 feet without getting worn out. She's got 2 bad knees, which are replacements, 2 hips that are replacements. She just had 2 major surgeries over the summertime. Why was that street shut off? All we wanted to do, you could have shut it off. It was shut off at Borough. There was no reason, because you inconvenience those residents that still live on that section of Birch. Besides the general public that wanted to say go to Hansford. I mean, to me, that was ridiculous, and shutting off my street that gate, that didn't even know when. The mayor or Mr. Durford, look, we got an earful that day. And yeah, it's made that neither of those locations was yes. Magnolia was shut off, and Mulberry was shut off. I saw that. Nowhere was Meredith Street. Even if they just put on there the intersection of Meredith and this, from this time to this time. There are a lot of people that went by there and stopped. Did you live here? Yeah. Why did they shut it off? Don't ask me. Come to the meeting on Monday and ask council. Because you guys give the okay for it. Not us. You guys. And the only other thing I got to say is, if and when you decide what you're going to do with this building, this white carpet that you have purchased, I would highly recommend that you put it up for a referendum to the community and let the community decide. Because this is not your personal toy, this is not your personal plaything, this is not your personal business for those who may think that way. This is public property. It belongs to every citizen in this borough, and I would highly recommend that you do that. If not, I will have lost all faith in every member do or hope that the president of the city on council.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Any other public comment?
Bob Norris, 210 South Broad Street. I would like to respectfully disagree with Mrs. Watson's, which is my turn now.
That one
I
I
would
can't
like
speak
to
to, those you speak to.
respectfully disagree.
I asked you to speak when we could speak to one another.
I would like to respectfully disagree with your regard for the personal objectives of the council. It works very
I
hard
know. I don't
to
think-
serve you. You can disagree, as you do.
I will be that at all, that's why I
Thank
say,
you.
Thank you, Mr. Norris.
that's why I say.
We will move on to the reports. The only thing I wanted to mention in my report, and actually, I'm going to echo Mr. Edwards' comment about some of the street closings. I was a course marshal on the course this year, and I noticed a lot of traffic on Magnolia Street as well, much more than previous years. So I think that we're going to be working with the race organizers and police just to make sure that we have those street closures marked out more properly each year. My report is tomorrow's election day, and the tones at elections, recent elections, has not been good. Let's not contribute to that. Let's be respectful, let everybody do their duty, and I have all faith in this community that we'll have a very respectful day tomorrow. So that's all I have. Mr. Manager.
Thank you. I have 3 quick things. First off, a thank you to everyone for coming tonight. Whether you're in favor of something or against it, we try to develop policy based on public input, so it's appreciated. We hope you'll come back. Secondly, I wanted to get a quick note. Next Monday at 6 p.m. in this room, we're going to do a budget workshop. We did the same thing last year. Come in, it'll feel much like a science fair. 4 or 5 different tables with different departments at it. You come in, take your time and go through every line item of our budget. It's all on our website. You can go through every nickel that we're going to spend next year. You can review it. You can come in and talk to anyone on our staff about it. It's full transparency. We're putting forward our best thoughts on it, and we appreciate some feedback on that. And then lastly, just a quick thank you to police and public works. I think a lot of people enjoy the events that we have in town this time of the year. But it is a lot to ask of our staff, right? They're out there during the weekends, working those late nights to make it possible. So just a thank you to them for doing that.
Mr. Friday.
I know there's a lot of legal items on the agenda later, so nothing other than that to report.
Chief Holdsworth.
So report was submitted to the council and the mayor. I do not have anything else to add. To answer any questions that you may have.
I have one question, Chief, if I may. On your report, it looks like October year-to-date of 2022 is down roughly 2,000 incidents as compared to 2021. What's driving that? What's the?
Sure. And I've had one or two individual conversations regarding some of this before. It's a recategorization of how we document a lot of incidents. And I'll give you one thing, for example, we do extra patrol actions, which are ways for us to document when we've had or seen trends going on with whether it be theft incidents, whatnot. So, for example, we will do extra patrols of certain parking lot areas where we've had thefts from vehicles. Maybe it's a YMCA parking lot, maybe it's a high school parking lot, maybe it's legacy fields, where large groups of vehicles are parked from time to time. So we'll use that to try and track the trends of how these incidents have occurred. Over the years, what we spend probably the majority of our actual time on is the documentation of investigations, all the details that the officers do. So we try to recategorize things, and instead of having basically one report generated becomes an incident number. So if you see for October of 22, there was 561 incidents. So those are 561 incidents that are entered into our RMS system, which is our records management system code. We have recategorized the classification of a lot of these things. Instead of it being a single entry for everything, we group things. Maybe there might be 5 or 8 or 10 incidents, or should I say, investigations or details that are going on that the officers are culminating into one single report. Now we've done this as somewhat of a time savings, issue. What is going to happen here over the next? We're still in sort of a testing phase. We've done a CAD integration, I guess let's call it, with our county management system, where all the incidents that the officers actually respond to, or things that they self-generate on their MBS, which is the computer in their cars, is now going to auto-populate an incident in our system. So you're going to see actually incidents significantly rise from the numbers that are here, because now it's going to not take them physically sitting down and actually doing all these manual entries. So it's going to be a huge time savings, and we're going to go back to an actual one-for-one thing each time the officers are doing some detail. Again, this was sort of a time management way to have them sitting there typing reports less, being able to group certain things, that are less serious, not criminal in nature, but are active details that they're actually doing.
So when, Chief, will that statistic be reliable one-for-one?
We are, like I said, we're kind of in a testing phase right now to make sure that all the information is transferring over the way that it should. We've been doing it probably about a month or so now. We're going to go live with it on January 1, where you will actually see the numbers probably give a much clearer description of the activity of the results. But yes, it does jump out, obviously, as a substantial difference in the numbers.
Any other questions? Thank you, Chief. Fire company, I don't think does.
No, they weren't.
Finance committee met on October 20th. The bulk of the time was certainly spent on looking at the budget, revising the budget for 2023. We also did receive the remaining ARPA funds in the amount of $326,000, which largely went to the garage and garage repairs overall. The Kennett Township sewer bills are finally catching up. They were current through September. Lisa and Nick are working on year-end projections because we have to formally revise the budget for any changes we made from one department or one line item to another. So that has to happen before the end of the year, which they're working on. Overall revenue is in good shape. Some expenses seem to be a little high. We believe it's timing right now. Thank you.
Any questions for Morris? All right, human relations?
Yeah, so Human Relations met on October 19th, 7 p.m. And during our session, we discussed the education component of the anti-discrimination ordinance. And we agreed that the best way that we can support meaningful conversations and positive change in the borough is to pursue a DE5 consultant that we can then recommend to the borough to train our staff and facilitate trainings in the areas such as bias, microaggressions, and anti-racist training. And that we can then widen to our partners who are invested in the mission of nurturing a diverse, equitable, and inclusive community. So in the next couple meetings, we'll be meeting with some of the DEI consultants who will come and present their offerings with the intention of moving forward with the facilitators that are most in alignment with them.
I know when we established our ordinance, we were so focused on the process for complaints and et cetera. I think there's an education piece, and I think that fits in there. Any questions? Municipal relations. Yes, we met on November the 2nd at 7 p.m. in this building here. We have met with some organizations in our community just to see how we can streamline communication and set up future meetings. We're still trying to iron out our exact purpose as a group and have a better direction for the future. So we have proposed to possibly meet the fourth Wednesday of each month. So we should have something for next month. Questions? I'll give personnel. Personnel did not meet last week. We're meeting this Thursday. And 2 items, we're wrapping up the personnel manual, and we'll also be looking at the updated finance record job description. EMS. The regional fire and EMS commission met and finalized their budget for next year. We'll be talking about this a little bit later, but in general, the regional fire and EMS commission voted to raise the municipal contributions by 30% across the board. And the borough, through our agreement in remaining the commission, our contribution is capped at 4% for this coming year. However, we will have to deal with the fact that if we remain in the commission, we have to not make up the 2023 contribution, but future contributions will be at that level. So the adjusted basis moves up as if we had paid it. So it's more of a cash flow savings as opposed to anything else. We have agreed to spend time working on long-term strategic plan to see if we can get a budget that's 3 to 5 years out. So we have some more strategic plan as part of that and see where the costs are going to go. We'll talk a little bit more about that during the budget session. Any questions from that? Being none, we'll move on to our discussion items. I'll kick off with the Human Relations Commission, considering the commission ordinance update.
Sure, thank you. This is, I think, Councilmember Devon gave a great overview of what the commission's been working on. I know we also have the chair of that commission here tonight, Susan. Perhaps one of you want to give a sense, an overview of what this update is.
Susan, would you like to? So over the last several months, the Human Relations Commission has reviewed the original ordinance that was passed, I believe, in 2017 that supports an anti-discrimination ordinance that essentially facilitates discussion when there are issues of discrimination that occur in the borough, while also providing this education component that I discussed earlier. And so we've been revisiting just a couple proposed changes in the hopes that we can go out and finally begin to recruit people that can serve on the commission full term. And after council's review, I think we're finally in a position to begin to do just that. Susan, anything that you want to add?
Just to add, so the primary things that we did looking to change was to expand the size of the commission so that
the event that a complaint is filed, investigation. Complaint and secure the complaint if they're not properly by the past. There's a couple other small things, and the only other meaningful change is making our time frame state time frame, so that nobody, the formal term is exhaust administrative remedies, so that when it's state time frame, so that if somebody files with us in the state, we don't. And there's several others. There's not big. So.
Council discussion.
Two comments, if I may, Mr. President. One is there's a typo on page 4. It's just there's a section F or paragraph F, which is just kind of taking up there empty. So I think it's just a typo. The other comment is actually in response to a comment Ms. Watson made earlier. The commission is really about how folks are treated in jobs and homes in the borough. So it's important. The number of commissioners was raised to now between 3 and 9 people, a minority of which can be people that work a minimum of 25 hours in the borough, but don't necessarily live in the borough. They have to be W-2s with at least 25 hours per week throughout the year. I speak for myself, some of the council, and some of the residents. We would much prefer to have that people that live and work in the borough. So there's a lot of folks here tonight. If you're from the borough, there's a lot of committees, commission. Most recently, Sonny sent out one about the zoning hearing board, and we're looking for another member. Please, if you're interested and want to get involved, please volunteer. Thank you.
And to clarify, since one of the things covered under this ordinance is discrimination in employment.
Right.
That's why that was discussed and ultimately agreed upon that people that work in the borough could be included. Mr. Crowdy, did you have anything to add from your end?
Nope, that was a great recitation by everyone.
Any other discussion from council? Would it be fair to move this to consent next week or there's no objection? Just continue doing public comment. We were only doing one at the beginning. Oh, sorry. Yeah, we'll be on that before we vote on Wednesday. The third retirement option plan, amendment to the police pension ordinance. Mr. Crowdy, is this you?
Yeah, so the collective bargaining agreement from a few years ago implemented it's called the drop plan. You just need the ordinance now to catch up, so that's what this ordinance does.
Back to discussion on this. Pretty straightforward. Any objection to the consent? All right, so they're the first two items. Before we get into the special event, I would like to go to the administrative section, letter F. First reading of the notice for budget availability, and this is under Pennsylvania Borough Code. So this is the budget item, library funding. The borough council must advertise in the newspaper. So this discussion item is specific to the advertising. We on Wednesday will not be voting on the budget. This is specifically to approve the advertising that vote will be occurring first before the meeting in December. So we have, excuse me. So the budget needs to be available for inspection at Borough Hall for 10 days, but the borough's preliminary budget has been and will be continued to be posted on the borough website. And the intent is to vote after December 7th. I don't like to end this anything there.
Nope,
It wasn't as eloquent as you guys probably did.
That's better.
Any council discussion? I just want to start this off by saying this is a tough budget year. And after being very proud not to raise budgets, not to raise taxes for the almost 7 years I've been on council, having a clearer picture of where we are financially, infrastructure wise. This is probably the clearest I have seen the need for a tax increase. And I wish we would have invested more over the last few years, so this big chunk wasn't coming tonight. I do think we're in a position that this is gonna be a pain point with this budget this year, but it's thoughtful and it's more strategic. It's more in line with the direction council wants to go. And unfortunately, that there are some tough decisions that need to be made. So I'm just gonna kick off the comments with that understanding that I do not like being in this position. Council, any discussion? Anything related to EMS? Impact some of the decisions that we're going to be making?
Well, if we want about, as far as public safety goes, we're looking at the numbers. The current police department, the proposed police department budget is 2.3 million. The budget in 2018 was 1.9 million. So it's a $365,000 increase over 5 years. Part of the increase this year is the need for the police department to move from being supplemented with part-timers to being having one additional full-time police officer. So increasing the complement of officers to one full-time in lieu of multiple part-timers. And one of the biggest reasons we need to do that is we've struggled over the last couple of years to maintain a significant number of part-timers to fill those slots, which means we're going to pay more overtime to fill those slots. Some of the reasons that we're struggling with the part-time side of it is one, lack of available of people entering police work. We are currently in the process of testing for the full-time police officer positions as we become available. We start that even when we don't have openings because it takes a solid year through the process to have somebody that's eligible. In that process, I think now we're down to the final oral interviews, and we have a total of how many interviews are? Six candidates. So take 6 people to pull from for a full-time position. I will tell you that when I first started, on average, we used to have 25, 35 applicants through civil service. More than that. What would you say, Chief? If we went back 10 years ago, how many more would you have? At least 50 applicants.
So
This year we had 10.
we had 10 total applicants and 6 that have made it through the process. So with that challenge and the lack of people entering police work, it makes the part-time part even harder because the part-time people end up working in multiple departments until they can get a full-time and their availability is a challenge. So this year we struggled to hit our staffing requirements without going into overtime because we didn't have availability of part-time. So the proposal is to pool the part-time dollars that were there. We have to add to it in order to hit the benefits amount and everything we need to. So that is part of the increase, but we cannot provide the staff levels, and we're not overstaffed. So just so you know, we have 2 police officers on 24/7, right? So 2 on there, and we would never go below that. We would never have one officer working by themselves. Not safe. It's not good for the community. We would never do that. So you have 2 working 24 hours a day, and then you have we have our detective unit that has a full-time detective and 2 in administration, right? And that's it. So there's no overstaffing. This will allow us to have a dedicated, we do have a school resource officer as well, in which we receive reimbursement for a good portion of the salaries from the school district. Regardless, if we didn't have an officer there, we would be there anyway. It's our job to control that. So if we didn't have somebody dedicated and sharing his salary, we would still just be pulling somebody from the street to do that. Last Friday, when we had the bomb threat that was there, how many people from the department did it take resource-wise just to manage that day?
We had 4 officers, connected to the incident. We had our streets department actually helping us with road closures for it. We had multiple resources. We had 4 canines that came in from, from out of the area. It could have taken another 20.
We can't dip below, there's just, the proposal in the budget is to convert part-time into 1 more full-timer, but we are not an overstaffed department. It's just not. There is nobody else left. There's nobody else to call. There's not another person down into that mix. So that is part of the budget increase. So over a 5-year period, it's basically $300,000 gain since 2018. Just keep in mind that has put it below CPI every year. So it is not, every year the increase has been below CPI. So it's not a number that is an astronomical number that is outpacing CPI. So it's a big department, it's a big line in the general budget. The chief was asked to cut another $100,000 from his budget and to fine tune it, and has worked and cut it to the bone and said we could find another 50,000 or close to it. But finding another 50 is very, very difficult. It would mean reduced service. We would have to do without somehow in there. We would have to figure out what we couldn't deliver. So if public safety is a priority, there's very little wiggle room left in that budget for that. On additional public safety, which will be fire and EMS, as I shared I think Councilman Borough is going to share on that as well. The borough renegotiations with the Regional Fire and EMS Commission capped our contribution this year at 4%, while all of the surrounding municipalities increased by 30%. So we negotiated that on behalf of the borough. It took a lot of hard work and a lot of people and a lot of right. There are other surrounding municipalities that are not happy. We paid 4%, they paid 30%. But that was what we agreed to. But there's going to be a lot of heavy work this year to not see what that looks like, because it could be, more this year and next year. So public safety is expensive. And if it's a commitment from our community to maintain the level of service that we have in public safety, that's the cost of it. I don't know where else to find money with it. We are going to work very diligently with regional fire and EMS to see what can happen there. But as of today, it was capped at 4%. We are not covering our fair share.
Yeah, and just to add to some of that, I think the companies are still not close to what they need as far as funding levels and all municipalities. We're looking at a lot of big apparatus. One bonus was that we did get the new ambulance that was paid for budget. And so that did come in, a bonus to the price that ambulance. But we are looking at older trucks that will be replaced. That's expensive, and that's to be ordered way ahead of time these days. Just make sure we get it in time that we did. Also, too, looking at creating the volunteer protection program, but that's something that we're going to function fully off of volunteers. We're looking at more staff. There's a lot that comes down the pipeline for that. I think too, the capital improvement plan that the commission is looking to build for those different pieces of apparatus, make sure that we are, more discreet about buying those things. But that's something.
I think Joel and I drew the short straw of being on the finance committee this year. But we tried to squeeze the chief and the police department budget as hard as we could. But have to accept his professionalism in terms of what's right for the community. We did get 50 that was later cut down to 28 for savings other places. But we're not crying in our soup. We're telling you the reality of where we are as a community with our budget. And frankly, it stinks. We have underfunded the borough in terms of the operating expenses for the borough and way underfunded our capital expenses. If you drive down Ken's Alley or many of the alleys and streets in the borough, you look at the incredible capital reserves we need to build, it's daunting. And you'll hear more about that in a minute. I was given the pleasant task to talk about some of the budget recommendations we have related to nonprofits. It's a very tough question because the borough has traditionally supported a lot of nonprofits, which is a noble, wonderful thing to do. Except we're spending taxpayers' money as Ken and John said earlier, and that's not our right. I mean, we are residents, but we have to be very careful, especially in a really tough budgetary situation. Specifically in terms of the nonprofits, what we did, just like we did to the chief, is we said, based on the number of nonprofits that we supported in the past, what are those that we really feel we have to support because they touch a vast number of lives of people who live in the borough? And we narrowed that down to 4. And those are the nonprofits that we felt had the greatest impact on the greatest number of people in the borough overall. Not that they don't all do great work, many of them do. We just try to reach based on the numbers. In spending taxpayers' money and those that we supported in prior years. With a lot of difficulty, we narrowed it down to 4 organizations. Kennedy Area Park Authority, which is the nonprofit group of volunteers that runs Anthony Nixon Park and keeps it as something that's a treasure to, I think, many of the residents and people in the borough and the township as an authority. It was a huge benefit for so many people during COVID and afterwards, become part of many lives, I think. Kennett Library was the second one. We said absolutely is part of the treasure that we have in the borough, and a partnership that we've had for decades as a borough. Not only is it about books and tapes and audios and whatnot, their contributions to teaching English as a second language is phenomenal. The number of folks they've got to become citizens through their program and just become more part of our community is incredibly impressive. It's a wonderful resource. And now, especially with the new building coming, it'll be even more so in terms of touching the number of lives in the borough. The third group we felt was instrumental was Kennedy Collaborative. It's the Main Street and economic generator for the borough. These are 4 groups that if we didn't have these nonprofits working for us, that we'd probably have to hire people or spend money to do some of the things that they do. And we felt the bang we're getting for the buck was better than trying to do it ourselves. The fourth one is the senior center, which helps so many of our seniors have a higher quality of life because it's there and they have a place to go and hang out and participate with other seniors as we all age out. After looking very hard at the budget, what we were able to allocate was $63,000, which is not a lot of money, as you know. $63,000. It was a reduction of 60% from last year. $63,000. And with a proposed tax hike of 3.5 mils, we wanted to be exhaustive in terms of how we're spending that money and looking for other ways to fund those areas, those 4 groups. We didn't have a lot of luck, but we did find one bit of helpful information. What we're able to do is there's a fund called the Fee of Blooming Fund, which is what certain developers, depending upon the size and type of project they have to contribute. They either have to have recreational services, land, equipment at their site, at their building or their community, or they have to contribute into something called the Fee in lieu of Fund, which goes to the borough. The borough holds that and can use it for recreational sorts of activities. We were able to take some of that fee in lieu of money to support the Kennett Area Parks Authority to use $35,000, which is what we budgeted last year for 2023 as well, which freed up that full 63, if you want to call it that, $62,000 to be used for now only 3 organizations instead of 4. So it wasn't a windfall, but it was certainly helpful in terms of the overall numbers. And it allowed us to spend that money on only those 3 organizations. In 2022, Kennett Collaborative, which is certainly a big part, many people think, myself included, of making Kennett what Kennett is in terms of the activities, the social events, the fundraisers and so forth that they have. In 2022, this year, they received $40,000 as a contribution from the borough. What we're proposing for next year is $20,000 or a 50% cut in the funding that we have for them. The senior center asked for $4,000 in 2022. They received it. What we're recommending is a 25% reduction or $3,000 to be donated, given to the senior center for 2023. Kennett Library, and I know a lot of the folks here tonight are here specifically for this issue, so let me kind of share with you some of our logic. You can agree or disagree, but at least I'll share our logic with you. Kennett Library, soon to be the Kennett Library and Resource Center, which a number of us in this room and even at this table certainly support, received $58,820 in 2022. We really struggled with what we can do to support the library because of the impact it has on the entire community. Most of us were not aware of any documentation about the borough's standing $58,820 yearly commitment for forever, at least going forward. We just were not aware of that. We also know that the historical contributions for the borough is far less than the 7 other communities that are part of the library system. There are 8 communities that support the library. We're one of those 8. In 2022, we gave 8.2% of the library's public funding. 8.2%. When we used 16% of the books were taken out by Kennett residents, 14% of the population uses it, and 16% of the cardholders of the library are from the borough. So you can certainly make an argument that we're underfunding our fair share, which should be closer to $60,000, or actually $60,256 to be exact, based on the library's formula. We couldn't do that in the budget. Chris and Jeff and others, we apologize. We just couldn't rationalize that in the budget. The library has generated over 60,000 visits per year, I think Jeff shared, prior to COVID. They expect to generate about 250,000 visits with the new library resource center. That's a huge amount of people coming to the library, going to stores, having a beer in a pub, going to shops, putting money in meters, getting tickets from not putting money in meters, and so forth. But it's a major economic driver to the borough. So turning our back on the library is not something at least some of the borough feel comfortable with. It's a huge economic generator and help fill seats and improve the ratables here in Kennett. We're certainly, please know, we're certainly not trying to give a signal to anyone, whether it be a municipality or a person, that the borough is not behind the library. We are. We unfortunately, as with the fire and EMS, just can't afford to support it at the level we have as much as we'd like to. We value the library, we value the board, we value the staff, the users, and we're thrilled that you've decided to remain in the borough. It's something that benefits the borough greatly, in our opinion. The library has done a super job. On their own, they have raised over $17 million of a $21 million capital campaign. You can agree or you can disagree with that, but you can't disagree with the incredible efforts that group has done to raise that money. Some of those donations, I'm sure, come from people in this room. For all those reasons, what we have decided to do, at least in the current draft of the budget, is to allocate $40,000, which is certainly a 32% decrease from the $58,000 that we budgeted this year. You can like it or not, but that's the rationale. Jeff Yetter and I have spoken a little bit about other things the borough can do that are not budgetary, specifically budgetary in nature, that might be able to help the library in other ways to show kind of support for the library. Thank you.
I think from my end, just to kind of add to what everybody else has said so far. For several years, the borough's governing body has prioritized protecting our community from tax increases, recognizing that the impact that it has on our residents, especially our most vulnerable residents, for whom we've been trying to work towards more mixed income housing. And raising taxes is never a pain that we want to inflict on our community, and this is a sentiment that I feel profoundly as a native of Kennett Square that's invested in protecting and defending our people's quality of life. But we also can't ignore the state of our infrastructure, and doing so might be the only solution at this point in time to support the infrastructure improvements that our community also deserves. We really feel this pain deeply, and the priority going forward for this governing body is going to be to continue looking for creative financing solutions, including state and federal grants, so that we can hopefully remedy as much of this as possible going forward and not find ourselves in this position. So we hope that we're able to revisit this and to really continue to help our community live their best life here.
I guess I would just add, following up on Councilmember Zavala's point. So if we're going to go to the public and ask for a significant tax increase, increase and limit nonprofit spending. I think we really need to hit two things. So for one, we need to get outside funding if we can. And heading into 2023, our general fund budget's about $5.5 million roughly. And we're going to get about $4.5 million grants. So we are getting a significant amount of money coming in from outside sources to help boost up what we're asking the community to put forward. The second piece is that if you're going to put in the money, you have to be really clear that it doesn't go into a big fund, right? That you're going to get some bang for your buck on the capital investment. So an item we're going to go through tonight, well drafted by our attorney, is a capital reserve. So we're allocating half of this tax increase if it passes to a separate auditable account that's just for capital improvements. So we talk about improving roads, alleys, sidewalks. It's going to be a separate account. You know and see where those funds went. So it's trying to be transparent. It's trying to be accountable for what we're asking. And then the last piece, I think we had we all intuitively know that if you're going to ask for that from the community, you better make sure that you're keeping tight budgets internally. So just some figures to help represent that. I think the mayor did a good job of explaining how we held our public safety budget intact and really tight budget. If you look at our streets department, we are up $13,000 from 2018. So we have really held a tight budget on that department. If you look at our admin, finance, and codes departments, code inspection, that budget's actually down $119,000 from last year. Even when you include a one-year grant of $85,000, it's still down, roughly $35,000. So the real cuts to spending, we really are trying to tighten, our budget as much as we can. And the last piece of data to kind of help, visualize what's going on here. Over the last 5 years, if you look at our total budget, 1% of our budget has gone to capital. This budget proposes 8.5%. So you can imagine, right, with your home or your car, a larger capital asset, you have to invest in it every year, or eventually it catches up to you. So just some context to support what council said from a kind of numbers, data perspective.
Anything else from council?
I just want to say that I support all of the viewpoints and ideas that my fellow council members have mentioned. And one thing that I want to say is all of this is or will be public. And I just want to fervently ask all of you, all residents, to give us your feedback. I'm sure I'm going to hear a lot of it here tonight, but even beyond that, email us, give us your written thoughts so that we can actually go through them as well. It's all out there. We are doing our best to improve life in the borough, to pay for the things that we can, and to make nicer roads, all of that kind of thing. But yeah, I want to hear your thoughts and your ideas.
Anything else? Anything else from council? With that said, we will have public comments specific to this, and again, because such a large audience is here from the library, I would like to afford Mr. Yetto or Mr. Manna to speak and just give some thoughts from that perspective. And we will try to keep this in line with all of the public comments, like 3 minutes or so.
Yeah, well, we're all gathered here this evening, a night before election, having civic discourse, talking about what is to be a police officer. I can say that we're opening that new building in May. I can't wait to have these discussions in the library. What a way to engage with the crowd, with the borough, with the residents. It's a great opportunity for us to really talk about what this all looks like. There are 5 pillars in what the library stands for in the 21st century. That first one is civic and social literacy. What greater way to learn about the government, the way this functions, and have those discussions in this new building. Like Bob said, 250,000 people are going to cross through those doors that very first year. We had 61,000 cross this past year, so that's a growth of almost 4.5 times. To meet that need, we're going from 55 hours on 6 days a week to 67 hours a week, 7 days a week. So that's a huge growth. That's an 18% growth. The second pillar related to serving that why is basic literacy. You can't read and write. there's no way you have an opportunity to move forward your career in your life, get that great home, great job. So to support that, we have an adult literacy program. In the past, we've done 8 classes a week. That's 2 a day, 4 days a week. We're growing that to 14 classes a week. That's 3 a day, 4 days a week, plus 2 on the weekends to serve the citizens who come from all sorts of walks of life. The third piece is health literacy. Our most recent initiative is called the Live Better program. This is with Penn Medicine and LCH locally here. We were just listed in their strategic plan as the Penn Medicine. University of Pennsylvania is listed the Camp Library as their strategic partner in Chester County. This has resulted in a number of new engagements. 3 times a month now, we're having partnerships with Penn Medicine right here in the borough. Working beyond that is our work with the school district. So we just launched a program with TMAC, County Transportation, the Kent Library. We're going to have a SAD, Students Against Drunk Driving campaign for December and January. Students are submitting these posters to the library. Parents and everyone will be invited to come in and vote. We're going to give prizes out to those best students. It'll be for all over the county and county transportation articles of what the Kent Library, county transportation, and this borough is promoting in terms of health literacy for our folks. The next piece, information literacy. Many of you came to our Patty LaBelle concert. Thank you to Mayor Fedek for his huge support on Patty LaBelle. That's just one tip of the iceberg of how we're going to be using this new building. Think of TEDx. You think about all those exciting speakers that come. We're going to bring those speakers from across the country right here to the borough. Think about having those 50 times a year throughout the year. People coming, as we saw for the concert, New York, Philadelphia, Virginia, Delaware, Maryland. Why not bring all those folks regularly spending their tax money right here in the borough and help you guys out? Make this an easier decision in years in the future. Just this morning, I heard from AHA speaking more about informing our public. We are launching the Dolly Parton Imagination Library right here for all residents in Chester County. What that means is every child born in the borough or in Chester County under the age of 5 will receive 1 book a month mailed to their home for free, courtesy of the Kent Library, the Justin Foundation, and AHA. That is an incredible offering. Chester County Hospital, one of our other partners, is going to be handing out applications. The minute that baby's born, they're getting a library card and they're getting an application to get that free book mailed to them. We want those kids reading. We want them to use the library. This is great. I mean, if you want to talk about advocating for everything, that's what we're here to do. The last one, financial literacy. And we're talking about saving money just like you guys are too. As you know, that we're growing in size 300%. We're going from 11,000 square feet to 33,000 square feet, just so you all know. Our budget's only growing by 20%. To make that work, we've streamlined staff, and to further that, Westchester University has stepped up and said we have 2 maker spaces, adult and children's maker spaces, and an audiovisual room, and a 110-seat auditorium. To make those rooms fly so we're not filling our budget, Westchester has said we're going to staff that for you. We are going to provide our curriculum with our professors and TAs in the Ed Tech program. These are the same faculty that are teaching all the teachers that come through in Kent School District and all the surrounding school districts. It's going to be the same language at the school district, Westchester, and now the Kent Library. These students that come through will see one language all the way through from birth until they get into college. Again, this is that public-private partnerships. We get the university, the borough, the library, everybody involved in what education looks like for these kids. The last piece I'm going to share with you guys is, yes, 21.7 million is that building that we're building in May. We are $5 million short of that goal. I'm hoping tonight that some of you can help us here. The borough has been very supportive of us throughout this process. That last $5 million is all we need, so we don't have to open debt free. Hope some of you can join us in that. And if you want a tour, is there anybody here? Shoot me an email. We'll get you in there. We're doing it at least 2 or 3 times a month now. We'd love to have you on a tour. Thank you for being here. Thank you for having us. And thank you all for your support. Yeah.
You never want to talk. And now,
On the low point of our meeting, first of all those programs and exciting things have the board of trustees. No, it's not. It's all Chris. He has reached out. I would like to point out, this is for Bob. The free book for every child is costing us 0 foundation grant. So we're working on all the edges as well. We really appreciate that. Well, Chris pointed out a lot of really exciting things that are happening. We're looking forward to working with the borough to explore ways to support our efforts to bring more services to Kent Square. And Bob, we checked with the library system. We can't get you on the circulation as well. It's kind of expensive. We'll be in touch. Yeah, you can help us.
I open my mouth.
You did. Finally, I have to say, I've been out for 7 years as board of trustees to replace a 61-year-old library. I'm not sure that we were aware of the magnitude of the task, because if we were, I don't think we would have done it. It's been unbelievable. All the hard work though that has happened over the last 7 years is now evident at State and Borough. If you haven't driven by, that is the new library. Big sign, but I still get people every week saying, what is that? Where are you guys moving? Are you staying where you are? No, that big building is going to be your new library. We want to thank all of the municipalities, Kenneth Borough and the other 7 municipalities for supporting us. As far as I know, we've been told we're the only public-private project like this that's gotten municipal support from the local municipalities. We pulled in 3.9 million from the state, but it's really been the local foundations and you that have made the difference. We've got well over 1,000 contributions so far. And as Chris said, we're a little short. So if you have made a contribution, I recognize some here that have been. Thank you very much. If you haven't, now is a great time. For those of you that said, I'll believe it when I see it, go down there, look at it, and then drop something in the mail to us. We really appreciate it. For those of you that have already given, we do accept second checks. It's not, we can't put that. But no, thank you for the community. You guys have been supportive. We are not an easy nonprofit because we always have, you can see we have a press, we always have questions and demands of more services we want to offer. And you guys have been very supportive. So we do appreciate all your support and look forward to a wonderful grand opening in May of 2023. That's next year. That's less than a year away.
2020.
Oh, yeah. Okay, close. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment on the budget? We can get a line going if you need to.
My main concern on a lot of things. One of them is what's it gonna cost us 5 years from now? I mean, I'm impressed. Chris is impressed. But the building is so big. It's like a big city library in a small town. And I'm concerned that down the road, they're gonna come and say, we need 100,000 a year. We need to staff it. It's a concern for down the road. I mean, the library is a big building. And I've been a member of the library for 70 years. I was in it when it was the house on Broad Street. When I was a kid. It's just, and I got a good education. And then the library I was around when we built that one. That's a concern I have down the road, just like the EMS. Going up costs money. And the library's gonna come to us and say, hey, we can't stay up and do all this stuff without you contributing more. You tell us we're a small town, we're 6,200 people. Where's all this money coming? I'm going on my 75th year. I can't afford a tax increase. And I can't afford $160 million at the school borrowing. And I don't have any children. And I've been paying school taxes for 50 years on them. So, I mean, they're killing me. And then you're going to raise and I have 2 apartments, you're going to raise that fee. Everything's a fee, and I'm not supposed to raise my rents because I'm supposed to feel sorry for these people because they can't afford to live there. I mean, you're killing us. You're killing us, especially senior citizens. Why can't we have something where they freeze taxes at retirement age for seniors? Like the school would do the same thing. Then when you die or you sell it, you have to go home somewhere, taxes go back up. But I mean, I don't mind paying taxes. But man, there's a point where my income is shrinking and you're telling me you need all this money. And then with the economy the way it is, go to the grocery store, you buy 6 things, it costs $99. You'll get gas, it's $4 or something. And I'm on a limited income. And I'm not alone. There are a lot of people like that. So I think that, you know, I mean, being realistic, hey, they remember the library, I like the libraries. What they built was too big. for this little town. And it's gonna cost us a lot of money down the road. And if anybody can pull it off, it's Chris, I agree. But it's a lot of money. Thank you.
Hi, Laura Flores from 234 Center Street. Sounds pretty grim. I can feel the sincerity of wanting to support the library, and I know it's true. I do have a few thoughts that I wanted to share. So I was thinking about kind of the place of the library in our community, and I just wanted to say, I think that the residents, we rely on all the infrastructure of this small town, like the well-maintained infrastructure, we depend on clean water, smooth roads, safe neighborhoods, and good schools. I think that the library is one of those essential municipal infrastructure. So that I think that supporting the library is very similar to supporting good roads, good schools, clean water. Working in the library every day, I see so many anecdotes I could share about what we do and the impact we make throughout the community of the borough and beyond. But to name a few, we have a lot of books, but we're a lot more than books, as I think you mentioned. We also we're like connective tissue to the town. We are public comments for civic engagement. We are a vital resource for those that need Wi-Fi, computers, and digital information. And we provide the community from the very youngest to the very oldest and everyone in between. And we're a touchstone for many, many generations. You can talk to anybody and their grandparents to come to the library, anything you're interested in. It's perhaps one of the only places that anyone can come and simply just be. They aren't asked to do anything or do anything, they just be there. It's a place to learn and to teach and to share and to connect, a place to build, and a place to expand horizons. It is an infrastructure that supports our social health and well-being. And while the library serves many people beyond the Phoenix Borough, so we serve a lot of different people, so I think our building will barely hold us. I believe that we are still the heart of Kennett Square. So I'm really imploring the Kennett Borough Council to wholeheartedly maintain the robust support you've already shown us. And to know that it is not a luxury or a minor diversion, it's not just some incidental thing about picking up the latest bestseller. We are an essential service to the community. And I think we eagerly anticipate moving to the new library and thinking of all the things that we're going to be able to offer that we have not been able to offer to our people. So again, clearly all the infrastructure needs money to maintain and are all important to a well-functioning town. But it's hard to know, how can you choose? and I appreciate that task. Must be really hard to choose. But I do hope that you still consider the needs of the library as an infrastructure and a critical element to our community. So thank you very much. Thank you all. What you've done so far and continue to do. Thank you very much.
Ethan Kramer, 714 South Garfield Street. I'm going to disagree with Ms. Flores on one point, which is one of my favorite things, which is it's not great. This is not great. And here I'll tell you why. So 6 years on this body, we forget. People have short memories. 6 years ago, a whole bunch of things that John Thomas knew we needed to do were not done. We didn't have a budget on the web. We could not guarantee to our constituents that things were covered. As Dr. is here, the mayor and I, we spent a lot of time trying to get a handle on what water needs to work. And we didn't get it. And now we didn't. It's not grim because this body, and as a former member, it's nice to get up and say this body is more than living up to my expectations. You are doing the work that we left. And I started with some of you, but those new folks who are in it, really is hard to watch this body work. This is a body that takes this really seriously, and Mr. Thomas has seen many, many generations of this thing happening, but at this stage, it is really clear. One, are there any shenanigans? There are no shenanigans. We couldn't raise taxes because we couldn't guarantee that. And there's a bunch of stuff that we know about. Now we can. And it's your word. So when Mr. Norris says, yeah, this is ugly, he's right. We didn't even know it was ugly. So I am fully hearted, and I'm really emphatically happy about where we're headed. This is a bad year. And I want to say to the library issue, it's great to get this support, it's great to see all of that. I think it's going to be transformative for the borough in lots of ways. I'm on the school board now, and we're in. But I think it is true, right, that all of these other municipalities got together and said, yeah, 30% from everybody else, but 4% from you, because get where you are. So that's a whole lot of people. That's 5 elected bodies, plus everybody else. And the mayor and the Ferrero were really wonderful at making this work. There's a lot of work to get this to happen. They all said yes. So I'm appreciative that the library has really understood this. It's not fake, right? This is actually a place where the borough's in a spot right now where we need to rely on our region in a way that I hope we won't have to. And the synergy that's going to happen when all of us are working together, school board, library, every institution in town, that's where we're going to win this. That's where the extra money is going to come from. That place where we're not fighting anymore. We've watched it happen in the fire EMS commission where the region and the fire companies have come together. Now you get fire response with 4 pieces of apparatus in 3 minutes. Like, this is an extraordinary story. So I'm heartened. I'm appreciative. I also do say at this point, we didn't raise taxes because we couldn't. The danger of not raising taxes is if you don't do it a little bit at a time, year after year, you get a jump step. And we know that. The school board this year voted to raise taxes 0.67 mils. The reason for that in part is we need it, but we also are making sure we don't get to that jump. We had to do that jump because we didn't know the things Mr. Morris. We didn't, and now we do. And it's because of Kyle, it's because of everybody serving on this board, it's because all of you are taking this extremely seriously in a way that is not historically. So I'm appreciative of all of you. I'm appreciative of what you're doing. I support a tax increase and significant tax increase. I support the library and also agree it's wise to. Thank you all so much. Thank you.
Cheryl Watson, 523 Magnolia Kent Square. You can't spend what you don't have. And the only reason you need a tax increase is because you spent what we didn't have. You knew those garages are no longer occupied up there. You know the Genesis is no longer in them 2 white elephants. But we still got the expense. You know you entered into an agreement where you even give them a little break in the next couple of years, but not this year, because they're not there anymore and they don't want to pay. We would have for our library. We'd be able to contribute to them, maybe not as much. We would have, we shouldn't have any more for the EMSE because it's been the library, and I'm not against the library. Let's get that straight. Never have been. I'm an educational scholar in a sense, whether you believe it or not. And I've educated myself and used tremendous grad work, undergrad, whatever. So I know the importance of a library, but we got a cultural center. That's not a library. Okay, and they changed the name to that sounds better. Plus, we can use some Hadley funds. I'd like to know where that got to. Hadley funds is a philanthropic situation that brings all kind of culture things in here. So you guys need to tap into that. I don't know who's using it. Last time it was down Winterton, and I want to know what for, because that's a tenant Unionville investment. It shouldn't be out of those areas. Some of you people need to be educated what's going on here in Kevin to reason why you see my spot. Okay? Number 1, we bought this building. That's why we're having a tax increase. I would appreciate it, a PowerPoint presentation with literature, with a written word and a pie chart to show us the expenditures and the impact it's going to have on us forever so we could question it. We know the police department has always taken up a good part of our budget. And I haven't heard a citizen ever complain about that. Because that's the most important thing for us to have in this town. Then the other thing is infrastructure. You had the money to do infrastructure, but you kept dependent on Birch Street. And we haven't heard anything over the last 10 years other than an investment in Burke Street. My notes represented people who come here who've been against you represented, and you people have been voting and organizing our town according to your way. And the Kennet Township meeting, I saw American Legion, me and Tony Delmonte, that had outsiders planning what's going to happen in Kennet. They've been living it out for the last 10 years. So the development you see, why we will never have a grocery store here, why we have to drive the long one in New Garden because the council impositioned us. By taking those properties and turning them into residential when they were for commercial entities. This town is going to die, build on what they're doing, because restaurants don't hold nothing. Then you want to talk about the library, and it seems like you're going to do nice things, because my first thought was, why in all these committees don't you have someone with medical? Because when COVID came in, we didn't know a thing. And if our council had been functional, we would have known something. This building here should be a place where people employed and can live here and earn a living. They don't have to drive 12 to 17 miles like we did every day for a living. But instead, you're thinking about a candy lane. You should be ashamed of yourself. And that's what I speak to when I talk about humanitarianism, Christianity, individuality, ethics. Because the bulk of our citizens are not people who can contribute to the library. They can't do it. There are people who go in here and work hard and get dirty to earn an income. Over 75% of our population is that, and you sit here as elitists and talk like this is some realm of wealth that we have all over. We don't have that. And you're hurting every household with what you're proposing. And no matter what you say your motives are, your actions are not adding up.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Any other public comment?
Hi, I'm Sandra Young. I live at 419 South Broad Street. I had a very short walk here tonight. Prior to moving to Kennett Square, I rented each had for about 10 years, and I had a choice of where I wanted to take my laundry. And I was in Kennett because I could walk from the laundromat to the library. And so it drew me to Kennett. It was definitely a factor in coming this year. The kickoff that Chris gave was really inspiring to the public comment, and it sounds like the library is getting very creative, and it's going to be a space where creative people flourish. I don't know if I'll be able to attend the budget conversation that you invited us to. However, I would like to see the council being a fraction of the creativity I'm hearing from the library. I would like to hear the creativity that the council is putting into maybe figuring out creative solutions to the budget to support the library, especially at this critical juncture. Yeah, whether it's using this building to bring in greater revenue, or find another place to cut, have fundraiser, I don't know. Yeah, so that's all I had to say. Thanks.
Thank you.
They've already got me working circulation.
More creative.
You gotta pass the test.
Any other public comment?
Yes. My name is Linda McKinstry. I live at 218 Marshall Street, so I'm up the street. I think my biggest concern with the cuts is that potentially you might end up with fewer programs. And as you mentioned, the majority of the people using that library live in the borough. And that means it's going to impact on the people in the borough potentially disproportionately as compared to other people who come from various townships. That's great, that's wonderful. But if it's going to impact disproportionately on the people in the borough, as someone else mentioned, this is part of the infrastructure of the borough. I understand the streets, I've looked at them myself and go, geez, what's wrong with this? The streets fall apart. I understand that. but I am concerned that all the wonderful programs may not last because it's not just there's less money, which a lot of the, kind of collaborative and all, they all got their budgets, but part of the issue is that, but the library is going to have exponentially more expenses now because they have a bigger building, because they're going to have more to maintain. And I would need to see programs cut that are useful, that are good for the people in the borough, because they simply aren't able, to find the funding to be able to support those kinds of programs. I am concerned about this building. I saw $5 million to kind of fix things up. I know there may be grants and such, but there will be ongoing expenses once the building is fixed. Same thing with library maintenance, repairs, things like that. I'm really concerned about the expense of this building that's going to potentially take away from things like the library. And I think that bothers me. I have heard someone, I was talking to someone, they mentioned that potentially we're looking possibly at nonprofits kind of renting space or something. I don't know if that's true or not. That's what I've heard. And that's fine. The nonprofits get cut. How are they going to be able to rent space? So it's just a concern. I would hate to see the library cut programs because they're not able to keep up with the expenses. Again, not only for the people in the borough, but if people come and they get lunch or the programs get cut and they're not coming as much, that's going to impact financially on the businesses as well. And that's a concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Any other one? All right, thank you all for your comments. Any other council discussion on this matter? And remember, this is just for the advertisement. So with that said, any objections to moving this to consent?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Council? Yes.
I just want to give her a chance to voice it. No. This is not fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we are going to go back to then. Thank you so much. I appreciate your patience. And we have
Mr. President.
Yeah.
There are two other budget related items. I'm not going to tackle those now. They're sort of cousins to the notice of the budget availability. I'll refer to you.
I think the majority of the things are released already.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to do.
Okay.
Thanks so much. Copy. Midnight and Square.
We're gonna go around. I go on vacation. Okay.
Great event.
Thanks. 10th anniversary.
10 years old.
At the public safety meeting, though, we did review the event based on the application that was submitted. That we accept the application.
Questions or comments from council? No objections to consent? Thank you, Kathy. You got to hear a lot of good budget information. too.
Absolutely, I do.
All right. Mr. Mayor or Chief, are you taking the memorial?
Sure, for this, we'll have requested along with, the memorial event plan for next week. This is due to the road closure for the 100 block on East Main Street. Again, just married with the event itself.
Council. Consent. Consent. All right. Consent. American Legion Post 491 rededication. Mr. Taylor, are you here? You are.
We would like to rededicate the World War I monument at the court on Mercy Night School. The school recently fixed that area up, and recently had the monument itself all pressure washed, cleaned it up, started brand new. So we'd like to rededicate it and done some. And we don't have enough room on the sidewalk. We're gonna have maybe 40 veterans there, an honor guard, replaying ceremony, when we need to walk the street on about 150. So that can be spent probably. That's all. And when we be there from, I like the street block from 3 to 5. The ceremony's at 4. It's starting at 5. So we got to be out of here before that. It's going to be a short ceremony. That's all we're asking.
Can I see it or anything?
It's a good thing for your project.
Did I see, is there going to be a 21 story?
Yes.
Is there anything we need to do as far as the working distance or anything we can just do communication wise? Because I know we've gotten pushback in the past regarding.
Yeah, we'll definitely need to put out some public information.
Keep it down your minds.
I know that. And I'm not opposed to it. I just wanted to make sure. Yes, oh yeah. Yeah.
And some of these laws that we're all in the bulls, man.
Any questions for Mr. Taylor?
Great event, and thank you for conducting the Memorial Day Parade for as long as you have. It's another great event.
Phil, if I could add, so I know you only need 100 meters for your set. We will probably need to shut it down right at the intersection of Mulberry and Center and also Cedar. Okay, there's a traffic law there. So we want to stop that.
Thank you very much. Does the elementary, the kindergarten center traffic?
No, this is on a Saturday.
On a Saturday. And we have the blessing of the school, we can park in that lot, so parking is.
Anything else for council, any discussion? Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Move it to consent with no objection. All right, move on to the hard. Mr. Cronin, we'll be back to two items for us tonight.
Yes, 128 and those 219 Jared, both are twins in terms of we have a demo permit to allow for removal of existing structures. So we're going to construction of new facilities on both properties. Fairly straightforward. I think the council members have the questions. Or it seems to be important.
I have any questions. Any questions for Mr. Cronin? Any discussion? Consent? All right. Thank you, Mr. Cronin. You're welcome. That's consent for both, right, council? That's all right.
It's time for.
Yeah, I'm sorry, 4 items, 2 properties. Thank you. All right, Pennsylvania Commission on Finding Delinquency JAG Award, Chief.
So this is the formal acceptance needed by Borough Council from the JAG grant that we filed for back in March of this year. This is a capital fund project that will help us on several areas. One is going to help us update and replace all the in-car camera systems, all the patrol vehicles, and will provide us cameras and a program of replacing them for the next 5 years. So this covers a wonderful capital project, which takes us really forward to the future here. It's another capital project of replacing all the police department desktops. And then also the final piece to it is the implementation of Alexa policy management system and training practice. So this is all what the grant fund for, and now it's just a matter of council actually accepting this to the grant fund else can actually do this.
Just no matter.
Yeah, I'm sorry, no match required whatsoever.
Chief, what is the significance of the Lexipol system? What does it do?
The Lexipol is a policy management system. Our policy manual currently now is a mixture of a written document that's about 4 inches thick, multiple priority policies that I've updated over the years. Lexipol will let us implement all of our existing policies. It will then be attorney reviewed, making sure that we're at the best practices, the most compliant, and then reissued to the officers in electronic format, where we can actually track and train all the officers on every single policy. We'll have acknowledgements, we'll have monthly training opportunities for all the officers, because some of the policies are significantly extensive in length, and just really contain a significant amount of information. What will happen also, the fabulous thing about Lexipol is every time that the laws change, which typically there are multiple changes annually, Lexipol reviews the change, compares it to our current policy, makes suggestions by the board of attorneys that actually vet and review everything, and pushes down updates to those policies on a regular basis. Soon as law changes.
I think it was about $6,000 in your judgment. It's worth that.
Yes. Yeah, it is a phenomenal system. And some of the significant expense in the first year is a $17,000 implementation fee, which actually merges our existing policy, review of all the best practices, and then culminates a policy manual that we then move forward.
Anything else? So we want to accept $74,000? Okay, I'm gonna move that to consent. You got another one, Chief, just keep on rolling.
So this is for another PCCD grant opportunity that came about this year. The grant submission was due in mid-October, so we have submitted it, and are now asking council to ratify the agreement after the fact. This is for a total of approximately $145,000, again, for a multitude of capital projects. Some being the replacement and upgrade of the camera and surveillance system in the police department. And some of this has been thought out as to utilizing the current space and then also be able to be moved to the new space. There's, again, a multitude of equipment that we're trying to replace that unfortunately due to budget constraints, we keep dropping these capital projects off every year. This also actually is a new thing, opportunity under the local law enforcement support grant, a officer retention grant, which allows, to reward officers that have been valuable employees again, and a way to help retain them, and also to implement a officer wellness program as well. We have different resources available through the FOP, through our healthcare provider. But this actually will allow us to go a little bit above and beyond and actually do some preventative healthcare wellness officers, because they are subjected to some traumatic incidents on a regular basis. So again, this is an opportunity that's come forward. We as council to accept the grant that was submitted. There is again no matching to this funding, and a way that we can hopefully be able to sustain some of these programs going forward.
And I know that anytime we hear after the fact, we might be, hey, is this the rule or is this the exception? And just some of the conversations we have on just those. Is there not funds required? Is this going to have a budget? If that is the case, then we don't say, Chief, just apply, we'll get to it. We make sure that all those things are done before.
And similar to what we just approved with the previous one, you'll have this come to you before, for approval before we accept it.
Any objections to moving to consent? Authorize signer for in-car camera contract.
This is a request for council to authorize myself as the signer of Lexipol to actually begin this perfect process. Again, which is all covered by the grant.
And is that you only as signer, or is that?
No, it would just be sold me.
Any questions on this one? And then authorize signer for Lexipol.
No, you did the, you was on.
Oh, you know what?
One the card camera
The first one's a car camera.
And this is, to authorize myself as the signer for the Axon, in-car camera project that we covered under this range.
So all in concept. Consent. All right, chief, I think that's it for you right now. All right, thank you, sir. Moving on to public works, Rob, the open notice of violation.
Is anybody from Southern here? I'll go over real quick and you can get on the phone. Okay, so what this is Southern, and we also have our engineer here in case there's any more technical questions. What this is Southern's discharging to our system is covered under NIP. It's municipal industrial refrigerant program. So they're supposed to send a certain amount and a certain quality. What we've had this year is we've had increases in flow during rain events, significant rain events, and I know they're working on it. And the service are created a notice of violation with a fine of $40,060, and they're here to ask that the fine be reduced or forgiven. What's your name? Oh, Brian. I'm looking over this, so I can see this corner. Okay, this is Brian Angelucci. Brian, if you want to get up and say something.
So my name is Brian Angelucci. I'm on a facility water company down here. We've been trying to get to the bottom of why when it rains, our discharge spikes. Yeah, we've been trying to find, I think we finally did it before work with PBX in the last couple of weeks. And hopefully we found the problem. It has been fixed. The pipes were broken, most likely groundwater infiltration, which is why when it rains, this spike. At no other point in time does the discharge level spike. We don't do anything in our building that would cause it to spike. We don't have any process that would cause it to spike. It's purely a natural environmental event that happens, and it correlates specifically with all the incidents. So I'm just asking for some leniency fines so we continue to improve what we're doing there, do a better job for everybody. And answer any questions that you might have. Any questions?
How long has this been going on?
It's been going on in different degrees of severity for probably 5 to 6 years now.
It seems, as an uneducated sewer person, it seems like an awful long time for that to be going on. I know that, Rob, you've been working for the best part of the last year or so on this issue.
Yeah, actually, I don't think you actually had overages to the point of NOVs except this past spring. That was the first time for me. And this summer we had some pretty good rains this summer, and that's where they've actually collected quite a few. I have been over there and looked at some of the things they're doing. I actually looked at some of the things with them that may be contributors. I have talked to some of the contractors too that are working over there, and Public Works doesn't support a forgiveness, but a reduction we do support, because I do know that they're spending a considerable amount of money trying to get to the bottom of this problem.
So you're recommending the fee?
Yes.
Who's the fee go to?
The fee goes to the MIP fund. And the MIP fund is basically pays for our engineers to oversee it. And Mike, you could probably answer more than that, but it's basically the engineers take a look at it, and usually it's Brian Miller that works under Mike to take care of the reports. We have actually the fund is in pretty good shape now. I'm sure you saw. The thing is to not necessarily punish, but to give them some kind of reason to get the thing straightened out, to get fixed. And the difference in the flow on this is that there was no organic loading. It's definitely rain. So we didn't actually add any organics or nitrogen to the plant. So it didn't overburden our plan.
But it counts toward the overall load.
Yes.
So you're saying give a 50% cut would be one time only. When should it be fixed, in your opinion?
I know they're working on it, and did you jack the floor? Okay, because there was a problem with, a condensate pump, I think, was pushing in there, some rain gutters were tied into it. There was a hole underneath the concrete. Brian says he got that taken care of, and I think there were a couple other things. Maybe, cracking the pipe out on the dock, right? Or is that-
Yeah, so now we've cambered on 90% of the pipes in our building, which was built over 100 years ago. We didn't know where the pipes came from, went to, any of that stuff. We found a manifold underneath our cold storage facility, which jackhammered up last Thursday. There were 7 different broken areas in that one part of the system, all of which was below the pad level of our plant. So when the water level goes up, it's got to go somewhere. That's been fixed. We cambered all of our downspouts in the back of all over our building, determined that none of them go into the public sewer anymore. And we're continuing to go through a diagram the entire facility. So if we do have problems, we know where the pipes are, what to look for, and you know what we're looking at. Now, quite honestly.
When do you think it should be fixed?
I'm very hopeful that what we did last Thursday is a major component of what was causing these overages that have been occurring over the years. Also, we did install about 18 months ago an extremely expensive holding tank to retain effluent on the property and discharge it at a low permanent rate unless there's an event like this, so that the effluent doesn't overflow or run down the street, it doesn't pump and discharge into the sewers. That was a tune of about $100,000 that we did that 18 months ago. So I'm hopeful that what we found last Thursday has solved the problem. But until it rains, we'll know.
And they're on notice. And this will be a one-time thing. Because, and like I said, it was because they have spent a lot of money on it. And, yeah, I have been over there and I have seen the work that was done.
And it's very helpful to help us too. Any suggestions have been more than welcome and help us solve the problem that we're trying to do here.
So I just want to nail down the dollar amounts because I see a couple different numbers. It says Sullivan has received a notice violation with total penalty of 48,060. Financial impact on the agenda says 48,606. So I think that's just a transposed number, correct? But then, are they requesting half of that 48? Or I saw in the letter, they had total penalties of 49,860 that set the date. So have they paid that already?
They paid that. They paid the piece that's 1,000 some was paid this past spring.
So they paid that 49 and
Yes.
some change. So this.
Well, no, they paid the 1,000. That's a change.
1,800.
Okay.
Oh, got it.
So now what's due is 4806. 60. Right? So. Okay. Well, yeah. Yeah, so this is what's electrical, I know what the actual amount is.
48,060.
06, that's the actual amount that's being.
Yeah, and so the way the program works is Panoni, our borough engineer, is the one that monitors it. Whenever there's a violation, they calculate the penalty that's due. And if we look at our packets, it's the September 30th letter from Panoni, and the third page of that has the chart that lays out the penalties. There's the 1,800 back from April 6th, and then the current penalty from September 30th is 48,060.
Mike, do you want to speak to this at all, or?
I was just gonna clarify.
I didn't know if you were chopping it in there.
I have two different numbers.
Yeah, you got the number right there.
Okay, but the 48,060 is the amount being requested.
Right, and just to clarify what Rob already mentioned, so the purpose of the penalty is covered by our borough MIP ordinance. And the things that you can use it for, unless anyone's going to correct me, will not be exceeded even by the half. So the things you can use it for would be to repair damage caused to the plant because of the overage. And I'm not here to add any. To pay any penalties that the plant has to pay because of the violation of the overage. I'm not sure if we had any of that either. for any costs of the plant to investigate it. I'm pretty sure Mike that Mike and Pinoni's charges are less than 24, and then for monitoring the discharges going forward. Heck, what happens?
Any other questions from?
Mentioned the, manifold broken pipe that you found, and that, if I'm following this correctly, during a rain event, you're surmising or postulating that the groundwater level rises up and it infiltrates those broken pipes.
That pipe leads directly to the sewer main, and we're going to discharge into the holding tank, which is then pumped into the sewer system. So, right, almost a direct correlation, and that area has extremely high water table regularly.
So that kind of whole thing is,
Yeah, myself and also Josh from PBS are surmising, we think we found what we've been looking for years.
So I appreciate the good faith and the work that Sullivan has done. You know, the goal is not to just charge and assess violations, but really get to the root of the problem. So I think that they've done a good job with that and worked well with our staff. So I'm not necessarily opposed to this at all.
I support the mentioned idea one time.
Any other discussion from the council? Any further discussion needed on Wednesday, or will we be okay to move this waiver of the violation fee to consent?
Violation fee or the 50%?
The 50%, I'm sorry. Thank you. Me and the numbers, you know that. Oh. Thank you all. Thank you.
What a horse trade.
Well, we just moved it to consent.
If it's fixed, that's a big event. I mean, we're having these big rains all the time.
Yes.
Suppose if it's fixed, you've done your due diligence, you've worked hard to get it fixed with the borough. All you have to pay are the engineer's fees to reimburse the borough, so it's not out anything. And you get it all. Next rain comes and you don't fix it, it's still happening. You still have to pay that 48.
I'm looking for that. But how do you define what the rate event is?
Now, remember, they have a holding tank, so they can actually store a certain amount.
Well, the previous one,
We're not gonna have any public comment. Right? Thank you. Let that do.
Okay.
Yeah. Fine. Yes, we're gonna stick with this one.
Yep.
All right, thank you. Now, we're gonna move on to amending what I think is my least favorite title of any ordinance since I've been on council. This is amending the fats, oils, and grease ordinance, or FOG ordinance, as written.
Right, we took a look at, what was there, actually, when COVID hit, the borough kind of walked away from the FOG program because they were going to be entering into restaurants, contact. So, what we did was we looked at it and said, the way that it's written, it's very cumbersome. They talk about, if the grease trap is up to 75%, it needs cleaned. If it can't, if it's not, it goes another year. At some point, if it gets 75% within that year, then it's clean. It was kind of crazy. So basically, we simplified it. The grease traps get cleaned once a year. So if it's 75% before, you'll know because you'll have problems with it. But they have to be cleaned once a year by a third party that basically certifies that the grease trap is operating properly and that it's been cleaned. Then the restaurant has to send us that certification to let us know that it was done. Before, we were actually sending engineers to try to find these grease traps, which cost the borough a lot of money, and then basically it would be handed off to the restaurants. Doing it this way, the restaurant does its due diligence by cleaning the grease trap, and they just need to send it to us. We don't know what the administrative impact would be, just in case we have to chase somebody down or we have to
and we have to do the filing. So we don't have a fee for it yet, but it's definitely would be cheaper for the borough, and for the restaurant owners.
There's also provision that if you switch ownership, that they have to get up to basically current standards as well.
Yeah, yep.
I mean, many of them not right now.
You know what, I would like to be able to tell you where they are. Right now, we have no idea where they are. I actually contacted the health department. The health department could not help us with it. They didn't have a list of it, so I'm working with codes. When Brian goes in to inspect the restaurants, they'll be looking for the grease traps for us.
The consent. CRP for birth. This is just.
Both of these items in the grant funds that were awarded, we are pushing to 2023, so we can use that.
Nothing new, just moving in different ways. Any questions or comments on either? Well, no, we'll do Birch Street, on Birch Street.
Just for context, this is $100,000 in matching funds. We're getting $900,000.
For the Birch Street.
So two of
For both. So we'll do Birch Street infrastructure, we can stand anything on Terminal Way. It's the same thing. All right. Stand. Permanent access and utility easement. For 316 North Broad, 310 North Broad, and 351 North.
That's, up to this point, we do have a sewer main that goes through that between the front back properties of, Walnut Broad and Union. The sewer main goes up through the middle of the properties, but we never had, and we had to replace the sewer main because of a failure. But we never had any easement for those properties. So to get things right so that we have it documented with the recorder deeds, I went through and had easements written up for it, and that way we have documentation.
Any questions, Mr. Moran, on the items? Just housekeeping items. Move those to consent. West South Street base paving award.
Okay, there was, South Street, West South Street, we just got done a sewer, project, replacing some of the main. What this is a continuation of it, of the project. The contractor that put the main in, they only were required to do temporary paving. The temporary paving on West South Street does not hold up too well because of the trucks. We have a chance to get 9 inches of base in on it now so that it will weather well. And then we will finish up on the project in the spring with 1.5 inch mill and an overlay.
How big is the section of street and how much you think?
It's the full west turn.
Okay.
And then basically it will end up being half a lane. The base project is not half a lane. It's basically where it's cut, you have a 1 foot overcut on it, and then dig down and with 9 inches of base.
Liquid fuels money or not?
Not liquid fuels, it's part of the project for the sewer.
We think we'll be able to get it done before the winter.
Yeah, we basically, to put the base down, the temperature of the ground has to be 35 degrees. So as long as, as long as we beat that, we're in good shape.
Any questions for Ron on this one? the consent. Thanks, Rob. Oh, yeah, we did. So there is a consider MBF Lennar site wall monitoring temporary easement agreement that was released. Why? It'll come back. Fee schedule.
Yes, so I'm gonna ask that this be taken out of the consent items, but the gist of it as you go through it, this proposes a 25% increase in rental fees, which matches the funding outline proposed in the latest budget draft. Obviously, the policy and vision for council, but we want to understand that before we use it in the budget number. The reason for pulling that up is that earlier in the spring, we made changes to our garage parking fees, and these were not reflected in this draft. So we need to add those in. We'll have that done by tomorrow. And then we'll also update here what the solid waste changes with the garage or garbage.
So we will have discussions specifically on this item on Wednesday, but anything like that. And we'll know we will support them.
Sure, this is it's a good project coming in from the township. We've got a model here that probably add more detail to it, but it's an 8,000-foot stretch, trail, in the township. And likely will be used by rural residents, and we don't know if any competing interests going for the grant. So Christina, do you want to add to that?
To a couple of items, the county township is filing an application for a grant with the Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and National Resources. That will help build the Chandler Trail, which is, as I mentioned, in the section that starts at Longdale Road and goes down to Champion Bridge. Currently, there is a grass and gravel trail down the parish section of the Chandler Borough property. So that connects to the future Chandler Mill Trail. The request is that the borough submit a letter of support for the township project. This doesn't involve any financial commitment, it doesn't involve any commitment to do anything with the project at all. It really is just expressing the council's support for this township project to complete the section of the greenway, which as Kyle mentioned, will be control and enabling residents of the borough to be able to get down into the streets south of the borough. Just to add, New Garden Township and Smallborough Township have also supported the application, as well as Kenneth Library, the school district, and a number of collaborative, and a number of other organizations. And the senior center, you're getting all the same enterprise.
Any questions for the board? And again, this is just another support. Anything from council? You can send me a letter of support to go on. All right, I will move that. And keeping with trails,
This is another good news piece. It's grant follow when we talked about before, that we need to get outside funding to do some of the things we want to do. This is $125,000 to go in a restoration effort along Wentworth Park. It's being called that Wentworth Creek, right near the park. And this is coming before us. Previously, it was $125,000 formal incentive. Just what a great job Christina and group are doing with trails around town in the area. It's super. Thank you.
make this the consent. All right, section 125 premium only. You're there.
They were that kind of out actually my product.
Oh, nice. All right.
Yeah, so this plan just allows the employees for their share of the healthcare premiums to be a payroll deduction on a pre-tax basis, opposed to post-tax.
Opposed? That's seen. Okay, full council. All right, I'm gonna move the consent. Capital reserve clause 3.
Again, it follows a discussion earlier there, but I think it's a really significant item. Obviously, it's been a long night here, but this is setting aside clearly auditable, reviewable account for the proposed, the half of the tax increase proposed. So I think it's a really critical way to do it. For those who aren't very familiar, governmental accounting works by having these separate funds. So if you pay your water bill, that really shouldn't be paying for the parking garage. If you pay for your parking, ideally you pay for the meter, but if you get a ticket, it should stay with the parking fund, not subsidize some other fund. So what we're doing here is, if you're going to put in extra taxes for capital, it needs to stay there. It's not going to be used to subsidize some random other project elsewhere. So that's what we're doing here, is outlining the policy that creates that separate account.
This is well overdue. Anything else, council?
No, so there's the resolution, it'll be updated to reflect the 1.75 for both the capital reserve component of it and the operating.
I appreciate the effort of good governance and transparency.
Anything, any other essential comments? from council? Move that to consent. And now we'll move back to the chair. And this is just an advertisement.
Yeah, so obviously to save money, we want to advertise this when we advertise the notice of budget availability. So we're advertising once for both, but under the Pennsylvania Borough Code, in order to increase or modify our taxes upward, we have to do it by ordinance instead of resolution. That requires that it be advertised. So there won't be any substantial impact monetarily from doing the advertisement, but we're required to do it.
Anything from council? Move forward from what consent. Strategic planning session takeaways. As many of you know, we had a strategic planning session. Public was invited to in August, actually. So we wanted to just get those priorities out there and have some discussion on that. You want to add anything with Bob?
Sure, I would just say that this year it happened fall or late summer. Next year, we're going to get into what I believe is really the right way to do it, which is a cyclical annual process. So every spring, you do a strategic planning effort, you poll the community. Then in the summer, you do a capital improvement plan, which we did this year as well. You lay out all the major investments you want to make in town. In the fall, you build out your budget. And then in the winter, you do a postmortem, analytical review of how you performed. So looking back at last spring, how did it end up at the end of the year? And ideally that flows right into your next process, because you're seeing this is what we're doing well, and this goes in focus. So this is one piece of that. Again, it was a kind of truncated process later this year. Next year will be spread out throughout the year.
And is this to put the minutes from that meeting before official minutes?
Yes. Okay.
And just so the public knows, the priorities were, number one, invest in underfunded capital and build financial reserves. That was number one. That's the foundation for everything else we should be doing. There was a lot of consensus on that. Then housing, and with a real intention to be inclusive. And then approve our appearance through parks, sidewalks, trees, and as well as we build a more integrated community. So those were the priorities. We put some responsibility behind it and have the appropriate workshops.
The only change I would say is I was there, so I should be on the list of attendees.
We were. So as long as we can get that amended, going to move back to consent with no objection. Approval of bills paid.
Mr. President, Council, we reviewed these at the budget meeting on the 20th of October and had any questions that we had, or few, answered satisfactorily. So we recommend moving to $960,438.97 to the consent agenda.
Any objections? And then the approval of council meeting minutes from October 3rd and 5th. Unless I missed them. Were they in there? Or-
No, I made a mistake.
That's okay.
They didn't make it up there. I left them
So
out.
they
It's my
will
fault.
not be in consent. We will put on those separately. Oh, wow. We're on page 8. All right, that is the end of the discussion items. So we'll go around the room for last comments from council. Mr. Manager?
Just a quick acknowledgement and thank you to our police staff, as well as our mayor, council president, a few other members of council for getting behind the grant proposal that we put in the summer. We were just awarded $2 million to go towards improving our police station in 2023. So it's a huge win for the borough. That's because people in the region recognize the work we're doing, they got behind it, and again, our council really got behind that. Got a grants consultant on board in July, and a special thank you to our local representative, Zach, and the team as well.
And the Square Roots for their support.
Yes, yes.
Just wanted to thank the police department for putting on the awesome community night. I think that's really critical to developing the trust in our community. So always thankful for your efforts and to see you come back and do this.
And we're definitely planning on bringing this to that. Very nice turnout.
All right, thank you all for a good meeting adjustment.
Right. Okay. Okay, thank you.